Hello, I'm Citrus, and you're looking at the real grade Tallgeese Endless Waltz. I built this kit using Vulcan's 1-pole nippers. This is the first time I've ever used flush cut nippers, so it took me a while to get used to them. They worked fairly well and saved me a lot of time in parts preparation, but I'll build one more kit with them before I pass a verdict. Something I noticed when I started building is that the C1, E1, and E2 runners are very glossy. I'm not sure if these runners were specifically gloss coated because it wasn't advertised on the box, but this gloss coating is both good and bad for several reasons. So you can see me assembling the shield now on my kit, and I hope this isn't a pervasive issue. The gloss coat doesn't seem to have cured properly. Many of the large pieces have hairline cracks in the gloss coat, which sucks in ink from lining pens. Fortunately, the cracks are shallow, so they can be buffed out without much trouble. The second issue, and this one is more general, is that the gloss coat clashes really badly with the provided stickers, which are matte. I have seen gloss stickers in Bandai kits before. They typically come on a yellow backing instead of blue or green, so I'm not sure why this kit didn't use gloss decals instead. To make the included decals look nice, you need to top coat over the kit, but this brings us to the third problem, which is that the gloss coat is a bit resistant to paint. I washed the parts beforehand, but I couldn't get even top coat coverage until I'd done about 3 coats. There's a sticker that you need to wrap around the barrel of the gun about halfway up, and I was initially stumped by how to position it correctly. It turns out that if you assemble the whole gun, push the barrel all the way in as far as it will go, you can lay the sticker right down at the end of the gray piece, and it will wrap around nicely. It's not very noticeable, but there is a very slight taper to the barrel, so it's a little bit thicker on one end and thinner at the other. If you try to place the sticker anywhere too far off from where it's supposed to go, it'll either be too short to go all the way around, or too long and overlap with itself. Now that we're done with the weapons, we'll move on to the real build, and we'll follow the sequence in the manual this time, which starts us with the feet. The ankle joint here is precast, and it's very solid, which will help with balancing the giant back thrusters. The joint design reminds me of the ankles on the high-grade IBO Gundam frames. There's lots of range to either side, so I'm very happy to see that. And we finish the foot with this little cuff piece, which is just like on the Master Grade, except this one will fit onto the leg a lot better. Speaking of the Master Grade, this kit is extremely similar to the Master Grade Tallgeese. There are some minor differences on the inside, since this is a real grade after all, but the armor and color separation are almost identical. Of course, I haven't built a lot of real grades, so I can't say if this is a persistent trend. Maybe I'll build the real grade Gundam and the Master Grade Gundam 3.0 to find out. In any case, if you've already built the Master Grade Tallgeese and you're not particularly attached to the 1/144th scale, there's not much reason to pick this up. But I personally love the small size, the intricate parts, and minor improvements. And on that subject, I expected this kit to be very fiddly, but it wasn't too bad. The parts were small, but none of the assembly is too tricky to handle. Part of that probably has something to do with the lack of pre-molded joints in this kit. I believe most real grades in the past used some precast skeleton through the core of the body, from the torso to the waist, but this one doesn't. Assembly here is straightforward, very reminiscent of classic Master Grade construction. The front skirt is one piece, and when it lifts up, the forward thruster extends. I'll refrain from making a pelvic thrust joke. All the other skirt bits are just like on the MG Tallgeese, and they move around in pretty much the same ways. A nice improvement, though, is that the peg that typically connects the side skirts to the legs can be folded away when they're not in use. This feature makes for a cleaner look when the legs are posed dynamically. An important difference is that all of the sideways mobility in the torso now comes from the waist, which is connected to the side skirts, which is connected to the legs. This makes the posing experience a bit troublesome, because freeing up motion in the waist means letting the massive skirts flop around. Moving up to the chest, assembly is pretty standard as well. almost identical to the MG again, but with a few minor improvements. First, the chest side shoulder joint is held together by two swivels instead of a ball joint polycap, so it's much more capable of preventing the arms from drooping. The shoulder-mounted accessories will add quite a bit of weight, and this change directly addresses that. Second, the arms that hold up the booster pods in the back now have a second swivel at the attachment point, and this allows the pods to point in more directions, enabling a wider range of dynamic poses. Third, there is now a lock in the back that will prevent the pods from pulling the chest backwards. This is great for helping the finished kit stand up straight. Sadly, the neck joint is still molded into the chest, and it's just the same single ball joint. I suppose it's part of the mechanical design, but I've never been a fan of limited neck articulation. Assembling the boosters gets a little tricky because the two halves of the booster shells have tiny interlocking parts that facilitate an opening mechanism. The concept is neat, but the execution is a bit hairy because the completed halves of the shells are quite heavy, and the connection between the booster and the parts that are meant to be pulled on isn't quite strong enough. To really make the booster open up takes a lot of fiddling, but with enough patience, all the pieces will stay where they're supposed to stay. The obvious difference here from the master grade is the addition of a third thruster in the middle of the booster. Again, I like the idea, but the middle thruster looks a bit weird because it's not as deep as the other two on the sides. I think the intention was that all three thrusters should look identical, although the design dictates the middle thruster be shorter to fit between the shells. With the arms, we finally see a bit of RG flavor with pre-molded joints. We deviate now from the MG's construction just a little bit, but all the armor parts are broken up in basically the same way. This isn't surprising, of course, because both this kit and the MG aim to eliminate any potential seam lines along the cylindrical sections of the arms. One interesting technique used here, however, is the use of rotational locks on the cuff and in connecting the arm to the shoulder. This prevents the attached parts from coming apart unless they're moved in a very specific way, and addresses two pain points from the master grade. The cuff ring on the MG can detach very easily, and the upper arm can separate with very little handling because the connecting pegs were very short. And we're finally onto the head, which is, once again, nearly identical in construction to the master grade. This kit includes a metallic blue sticker to place over the visor, but using it feels like a waste of the clear plastic, so I painted it clear blue instead. It isn't as shiny this way, but from certain angles, it can still catch some light that reflects back from the gold sticker over the Leo face underneath, and I think that looks quite good. With the head attached, we now have the finished real grade Tallgeese. It stands up well and feels fairly sturdy, despite the high parts count. I'll be back soon with some top coat and the full review. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Ew.